Welcome everyone to the user group meeting of our EMEA Adobe Analytics user group. I'm Frederick and I'm joined by Dan, my co-lead for the EMEA user group, and we're going to have a very nice meeting today about campaign tracking in mobile apps with Adobe Analytics, and we have a quite interesting agenda. So let's move on right now. So we're going to do with what you are listening to right now, some short introductions. Then I'm going to take you through some technical background of mobile app campaign tracking with Adobe Analytics. Then we're going to discuss a real live application of that set up at Costa Coffee from Dan, who's currently trying to find this meeting room. And after that, we're going to have a very nice sneak preview of a, like I don't want to say even more interesting, but a very, very interesting session that is happening tomorrow about Adobe's project Griffon. And then we're going to have our first, like, I don't want to say sponsored segment, but our first like really true external segment and some nice giveaways included in that. So make sure that you stick around towards the end. Also some housekeeping, of course. This session is recorded, as you've already heard, and we're going to upload the whole recording to our YouTube channel afterwards. So just make sure that if you go on camera, if you unmute, that you're going to be in that YouTube video as well, because I can't be trusted with Adobe Premiere. I have it, I love to use it, but I'm not very good at doing that. So first introductions, you've already met the two of us, the user group leads of this EMEA Adobe Analytics user group. What do we want to achieve? We want to bring people together around our favorite topic of Adobe Analytics. We want to connect the community. We want to be a platform for great content, new voices, all that fancy stuff. And most important of all, have some fun around our favorite topics and what we love to do so much. So one thing that you need to be sure of is that you actually join the chapter on our user group page, because you are able to join individual events without actually joining the chapter. But only if you do that, you're also going to be notified of future events. So make sure that you're actually joining the chapter for our EMEA group as well. And also make sure that you subscribe to our Adobe Analytics user group's YouTube channel. Quite a mouthful, but that's where we upload all the recordings. You can find a lot of recordings from previous sessions there. So that's a very, very simple subscribe. So everyone ready to start with our topic for today, which is mobile app campaign tracking with Adobe Analytics. Before we start, 1 second to also mention the QR code. That is going to stay on screen for the whole session, because we're doing all of this completely for free for you. And there's some people within Europe in desperate need of support right now. So if you get any value of the content that you're going to see today, if you watch this on YouTube and you want to give something back, don't give it back to us. Like, you can't. We don't get anything for what we do anyways. So consider donating using the QR code on the screen right now, or any charity of your choice. You don't need to trust my QR code here, but please consider giving back. All right. So are we good to start? Any stops from the moderators? Wouldn't assume so, right? Cool. Then we're going to start with our actual topic for today. So, talking about mobile app acquisition tracking and what it's all about. So, what we're going to discuss today is a very common use case in mobile marketing. So, let's imagine we are a company and we're doing some form of ads. That could be physical ads, could be online ads, could be anything that fits behind a QR code, anything where we want our users to download our mobile apps from the app stores. And in simple cases, it's going to be the Google App Store, but could also be Apple, Amazon, Samsung, like whatever small app stores we have out there today. From those app stores, we're going to link our users into the app, so they should download the app and then do whatever it is in that app that brings us some form of monetary value, like watch a video that has an ad in front of it, like buy an actual product, sign up for newsletter, whatever we want them to do that has some value to our company. So what businesses then like to do, of course, is they want to connect this monetary very valuable action towards what was happening before they even downloaded the app when they clicked on that ad. So this is what we're going to discuss today is mobile app campaign tracking. And there's a second use case also where people, like especially in CRM use cases or for existing customers, are going to receive emails, for example, for newsletter or like any like order confirmation and all those different cases. And from those emails, they are going to be linked, for example, to a website. And that website, if people have the app on their mobile phones and that app has deep linking enabled, that will actually lead people also towards the app and then into the app and into a conversion funnel where they might do any monetary valuable purchases. And that also is something we want to link back to that app, to that newsletter campaign, which is called deep link tracking, and we're also going to cover that. So starting with this first use case on the top here. So the biggest challenge in this whole chain is, of course, we want to pass the information all the way from the ad into the app and link our conversions to that ad. How do we do that? You see, we need to bridge some gaps in here. And the first one we need to bridge is from the actual ad towards the App Store. What we can do for that is we can attach, in this case, to the Google Play Store URL, not just the normal information that we would use to, for example, describe which app we want to link to, but also, as you can see here, we can add something that people know from Google Analytics, for example, which is UTM tags. You can see this is actually a like normal UTM string in a encoded way. And by using the parameter called referrer, we can just add that to the URL. And what that will do is, yes, this one. As we do that, we can actually, within the App Store already, see as our tracked channels, those channels will now show up. And we can now see that people actually clicked on that ad and they then, for example, downloaded the app from the App Store or visited the App Store listing and all those different things. So that's the first gap we need to cover, and we can do that just by attaching those UTM tags. There's actually some UTM tag builders out there, like on the official Google documentation pages. You can find a way to actually do that, but it looks quite common to what Google Analytics users are also using. So now that the App Store then knows like where the people are coming from, now we need to hand that information along to our app. So just to remind you, this is how our URL looks like, and all of the things that I'm going to show you, you can also see for yourself on the official Adobe documentation that I've linked on the screen here. I don't think we can share the slides afterwards, Chase. Is there a way for us to upload the slides to the platform, or do people need to type this off the screen?
I can send out a follow-up email with this, with the link, but I'm not sure about uploading the slides.
Okay, thought so. So yeah, let's see if we can actually make that happen. But yes, you can also, like by now you had enough time to type off the URL if you like. So within our app, and trigger warning, of course, this is now some actual app code, and this is like what you can like one-to-one hand along to your developers if you like, and if you're on the Google platform. But this is taken from the Adobe documentation as well, because both Google and Apple actually provide some ways how we can ask the app about the referral information that was handed along from the App Store. So in case of Google, we want to get from the actual App Store URL that the users clicked on, we want to get this referrer string that is right here in the end. How we do that is we can ask the app to connect to the Google Play Store and get that install referrer. What they will give us is that last part right here in a already decoded way. So now we have within the app the actual UTM string that people use to download the app and click on the App Store listing. That's quite cool because that's actually closing that second gap already. Now, there's two ways we can handle it. One way is to use the function that Adobe provides to us. So in the mobile services package from Adobe, which you would use for the app itself, we can use the process Google Play install referrer URL function. So that's just how Adobe likes to name stuff. and that will trigger a custom link event. So that custom link event relies on certain URL parameters that you can find on this page to be present in there, because that's like if you worked with mobile services for a while, you may know acquisition link tracking, and that's actually coming from that. So there's some very like hard-coded URL parameters that you would need to use for this to actually work. But what you can do instead is you can just use this get install referrer function and use that to enrich whatever data you're tracking anyways. So if you're doing page view tracking or like custom interaction tracking, you can just attach this URL and just use this string as it is and hand it along to Adobe Analytics and fill it, for example, in your context variables to then fill your tracking code. So this is what I've done right here. And this is now just using the tracking code dimension in Adobe Analytics. And as we can see, now it just works as any other variable in Adobe Analytics, and it just works like in a very nice way to then, for example, also attribute orders to that. So this is actually the way that we can hand along information all the way from the ad to that conversion that happens within the app. And we can actually see how all those conversions then like contribute to our like normal orders reporting in this case. There's a second challenge to that still, because like we now are able to hand along all the information from all the way from the ad towards the app store and the conversion. But what we also need to do is we need to build a reporting out of that. And what we could do is like we could look at the app store, look at the ad platform, in this case Google Ads, and just see all the dashboards and reportings in there. Then we could look at all the different app store reportings and try to match data towards that. And then also look at Adobe Analytics to connect it with all the like in-app like activity from our users. But of course, that requires us to look into 3 different systems to get an idea of that full user journey. So there's 2 ways that companies can handle it. One way is to use a tool like, for example, Supermetrics. Like there's many tools out there that can very easily connect to all the different APIs from those tools. Like Supermetrics is one that I've just worked with in a previous job, and it worked quite nicely. So like if you don't know them already, consider checking them out, but they are quite cool. The tool works really well. And then use a tool like, for example, Power BI to funnel all that information into a single dashboard. And that could, again, doesn't have to be Power BI, could be Tableau, could be Looker, like any BI tool you have in the company. But of course, with the Adobe Analytics user group. So what we can do alternatively is we can utilize data sources in Adobe Analytics. So data sources can, as you probably know, just import any summary level data from any system you like. So using the same tool like Supermetrics or even some custom Python script, sorry, difficult word for me, like you can actually bring all that data together in Adobe Analytics. That requires some coding, of course. But if you've actually pulled through with that, you can then have your tracking code dimension, and you can add whatever metric you like. You can add your ad impressions, your clicks, costs, download visits, orders, all that. And then you can actually build some calculated metrics. You also have conversion rates, click-through rates, all that different stuff, just by going through the extra mile to actually bring all that into Adobe Analytics. Of course, there's a blog post to go along with that. So in this blog post, I've shown the same thing for Google Analytics data, and the same works for any other data as well. So if you're interested, you can check that out, but that's the second route we can go if we want to bring all the data into the same system. So, by the way, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put it in chat, and then we can answer that as we go along. So, second use case. Now we want to track users who click, for example, on an email, are then linked to your normal website. And because you have deep link tracking enabled or deep links enabled, that website opens a page in your app, and you then have some monetary conversion in there. So what you might use for that is a URL like this. So you may link to whatever domain you have, and there might be some information like the product you're linking to, like whatever you advertised in that email is going to be in some form represented, of course, in the actual URL, and your app is going to handle that. And towards that, you can also attach additional information, like, for example, your CID, like the classical Adobe Analytics campaign ID, or any other thing you would like to have. And this is, of course, something we now want to link to that email back from the app. So how it's going to work, like if you have that feature enabled, your developers are going to, or have already developed a feature to actually open all the links that people click on within your app. And that's like the normal dialogue that people then have, like, do you want to open this URL in your browser or with that app that you've installed? And once you do that, you can then handle within your app the URL that people clicked on. So also in this case, let's just see a question there. Uh, I don't think that mobile services still is a paid add-on. I think that's pretty much part of the normal Adobe Analytics package, but don't know how it is for new customers. At least I never paid for it, so like might have been me being lucky, but yeah, I've never paid for it. Just saying. So within your app, what you're going to do anyways is your developers are going to in some form handle that URL that has been passed to your app. What you can then do is you can take that same URL and again hand it along to one Adobe provided function in a mobile services package called track Adobe deep link. And this is named adequately because it's not just any deep link, but this requires you to use a defined set of parameters in the URL. So at the very least, you need this, well, funnily named parameter called a.deeplink.id. You actually need that to be in place for Adobe to do anything. If it finds a URL that doesn't have that and you hand it along to this function, you won't get any event. So many people missed that the first time and then try to find it in the documentation. And you can also add some more URL parameters towards that, or any custom parameter. How that is then going to look like, for example, in this case, where we are going to track this domain here, and you can see here I have all the different parameters attached. I've just thrown that into the Analytics SDK debug parser that's also on the block. So if you have some debug lines from the debug console from your app, you can just throw that in there, and then you can actually see all the different parameters. And what Adobe is going to do once we give it a link through that track Adobe Deep Link function is it's going to fire some link tracking events. You can see that right here. The link tracking event name is going to be Adobe Link, which is a funny name again, but it's just how Adobe calls it. And then you can see that all the different Adobe parameters like ID, like internal action or tracking code are all going to be attached to that event. And what you can actually see, and this is undocumented, so people might be surprised by this, but you're actually going to get all the different custom URL parameters also as context variables. Like it's just going to add that, and you're suddenly going to end up with a context variable called CID in this case, just because it's been present on that link. So also in this case, you need to decide if you want to use this function. So you can decide not to use it. Like there's no shame in not doing it, because if your developers are already passing this deep link anyways, because your app needs to in some form react to it, right? Like it needs to do something, they can also do that for you. And I would actually recommend you that you don't rely on this alone, as like especially for an advanced use case, and implement that yourself and just ask your developers to give you that CID parameter as it is without you having to jump through all these loops. Because yeah, it's better than nothing. It's very good to get started, but as soon as you want to make it more custom and you want to have some custom information in there, it's going to be easier if you just do it yourself. All right. So second challenge then is, of course, we have again many reporting sources, and the fun part here is also that the solution is going to be the same. So you can just from your email tool or whatever you do to actually link people towards your homepage, you can again use data sources to bring that into Adobe Analytics and then have all your reporting in one place. So that's actually been quite quicker than I expected, which is good because that leaves some time for question. So, do we have it in the chat already? Huh. Quite a lot of conversation going on. Oh, yeah, there's one fun question in there. So how to handle links from organic search results. So one, it's going to be a surprise to some, but going back to that actual page, here it is, here it comes, there it is. Well, let's use this one. So in case of organic search results, what you might expect is that this function doesn't give you anything back, which would be incorrect, because this install referrer API, how that thing is called, is actually going to give you a string that says something like organic in it. So without any further implementation, if you want to or not, unless you filter that value out, you're actually going to get something that tells you if a link has been from a organic source. Obviously, that doesn't help you for, like, for example, search use cases where people just land on that page, because as long as you don't have that referrer parameter in place, there's no way for the App Store also to know where you're coming from. So that's that part. Do you have to implement additional code for App Store? Yes. So, of course, if you're on the Apple world, if you're doing anything on iOS, then the whole thing is going to be different. Like, the nice thing is that you can still use some Adobe provided function, and a lot of that on iOS is also going to be fully automated. Like, for example, for Apple ads on the App Store, you're actually going to get a lot of that for free from Adobe. So that's actually some more easy to implement, but still the overall functionality and the overall like process to get that information is the same. Because also if you're on like non-Apple or Google Play stores like the Amazon App Store and all those different other app stores, the process is overall the same. All right, so don't see any more questions, and I just see that Urs, greetings, is actually paying for mobile services. So I'm sorry to hear that. Don't know why you're doing that. I don't do that, and I still have it. Well, let's see why Adobe is so nice.
We need to talk, Frederick.
Yeah, indeed. We have a meeting already on our calendars. I think if not, we should get that in place. But yeah, we should talk.
Just one remark regarding the add-on. I have been told that it is not possible to get in a new contract, so it's only available for existing clients or that clients that already have mobile services add-on. It looks for me that it might be end of life for mobile services, but I'm not sure about. So really curious about other opinions or any further information you have about this topic.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, because yes, Adobe is trying to get us away from using at least the mobile services front end, which is like ironic to me because it's one of the more nicer Adobe Analytics front end, so I quite like it. But what we don't actually need to have mobile services in the front end at all for this, because this is just relying on the SDK that we can just download from anywhere. So even customers who don't have mobile services would be able to just download that, I think, because like I was able to download it and I don't pay for it. So let's see about that. But I think the functionality in the app that doesn't rely on the front end is actually something we can just use. I don't think that requires anything on top.
I think the mobile service is mainly for the push notification, in-app notification, and those marketing acquisition link tracking. And the marketing acquisition link tracking is basically a redirect URL on the Adobe domain. So I believe it's only those parts of the setup that will no longer be supported, not the tracking as you described in here. I think
good point.
those should be valid. And mainly depend on how the App Store and Google Store handle those campaign tracking in the future.
Indeed. So yeah, that's a good call out, because also things like the point of point of interest tracking, or however that was called, like that's also of course affected by that front end change. So yeah, like I don't actually know where they're pushing it. I think it's now part of either campaign or AEP. But yeah, some fun conversations to have for sure.
Frederick, I can speak a little bit to this real quick. Yeah,
Hey,
mobile.
Sander.
Well, how you doing? Mobile services will reach end of life at the end of this year, but it is just the in-app messaging, acquisition, deep links, and the location, right? It's not touching the SDK or anything like that within Adobe Analytics itself. And we sent along a few links within the chat there to have a lot more details.
Nice. Thank you for that. And that confirms that at least everything in the presentation and in the recording of the session is going to stay valid. And I'm very happy for that. So we don't need to change it in the recording. All right.
There's one, in my opinion, interesting question that's come through from Jan around using a single link that would either open an app if it's already installed on a user's device by default, or take them to the App Store. Is that something that Adobe can create, or do we need to rely on third-party tools to generate that kind of link?
I don't think there's a product from Adobe that can do that kind of thing, but like the way we handle that at previous companies was just to have basically a landing page on whatever domains, like domain may belong to us, and then to register that domain for deep links within like the respective app stores, which would then just mean that whenever people click on links, it would either open in the app directly, or they would land on that like landing page that is owned by the company. And from there, you can have some dynamic buttons that just link people to the app stores to download the app. And that, of course, can also then include campaign parameters. So then you need to be like a little bit disciplined about handing all those along. But that would actually work if you build a landing page yourself and register that domain to be a deep link domain for your company. Like that could work. And like and also all of this link discussion is making me very happy that we have Casper on the call later on, because like all of that needs some very like disciplined campaign link management, and like Accutics is a cool tool that we're going to see for that. So I would say let's go to the next topic if you're ready, Dan, because we're done with the part from myself.
Sure. So do you want to skip forward a few slides? Perfect. So
nice.
I just want to talk very quickly around current kind of real life example, really, that backs up what Frederick's been talking. And I've listened with a lot of interest to what Frederick just talked through, because it's super relevant to what we're trying to do right now at Costa Coffee. So if you jump forward, Frederick, please. So for those of you that don't know Costa Coffee as a brand, we're originally from the UK. So we now have 2,500 stores around the UK, and over 11,000 express machines in kind of a variety of locations, ranging from kind of like petrol stations to supermarkets. We've got a loyalty scheme, which is kind of one of the biggest in the UK. Around about 10% of the total UK population are part of it. So it's the numbers are in the millions. And we're recently being acquired by Coca-Cola. So we're growing globally very quickly. What we're trying to do right now is explore driving more users to download our app, from users that are purchasing a coffee at a till in a store. How can we get them to download our app, register, and then ultimately transact using the app? So we know there's a big opportunity for it to do that, because registered users are worth a lot more. We have kind of marketable consumers that are part of the base. So the challenge is, how do we have a non-manual mechanic that gets users to probably scan a QR code and download the app? And then the biggest challenge is, how do we attribute that to a store level 2,500 times? we want to kind of incentivize our baristas around the stores in the UK to get them to download as many or get as many users registered as possible. So I guess I'd be really keen to hear the audience's views on whether they can think of something that might work, whether anyone's done something similar in their businesses. Right now we're looking at options. We have some options that could work, but they're not necessarily the best ones. So if anyone's got any bright ideas, please feel free to reach out to me either after this session or in the chat or whatever suits. But yeah, we're just looking for a long-term solution, either using an Adobe product or a third-party product, whatever really. But yeah, hopefully that kind of makes sense as a challenge. And yeah, like I say, if anyone's got any ideas, please do reach out.
Yeah,
We're trying
very,
to...
very interesting. Sorry, just because like this is also basically the promise that third party have adjust and all the different other ones are making towards the business to have that unbroken chain of campaign attribution. So as we've seen, we can do something very, very similar with Adobe, but yeah, a lot of different companies in that space.
So Daniel, one of the things that I do know from doing the app acquisition is that until the user launches the app, we don't get a thing. So that is definitely one of the challenges. I mean, they can scan the QR code and do all that, but until they actually launch the app, you don't get a thing on the app on the actual campaign tracking. So that's the challenge with the app acquisition code. So they could go to the store, they could look at the app and do all that stuff, but until they actually go and launch the app for the first time, you won't get a single metric. So that's one of the challenges with this particular approach.
Sure. I think another challenge from our business's perspective is the sheer scale. We want a solution that works for 2,500 stores, and yeah, having something that's, I guess, unique and attributable to each store is a challenge.
Well,
yes,
Accutics can probably help you with that.
I mean, it's I won't take too much, but what we have seen for some clients are using a middle layer for a short reel. I mean, because then you could scan the QR code, user taps the QR codes, a redirect through a server that records the click essentially, takes you to the app store. I mean, it's closer to the real world. Of course, it doesn't give you anything, like Jeff says. I mean, the actual install is only tracked when you open the app the first time, but you can still see at least some sort of interaction with them, depending on how clever you are then to link it back to the install once the app is actually installed. Then Frederick can talk more about the ITP and all these things here, but they're not going down that rabbit hole right now. But I mean, you can get closer to it at least.
Well, and then the other thing that I'm thinking about, I remember there was a session that you guys did on dynamic QR codes. If there was additional information that you might be able to pull into the QR code that uses location and things like that, then you might be able to go ahead and actually append information into your campaign tracking information that would be able to, that way you wouldn't have to necessarily do stuff that had to, like, you wouldn't have to iterate every single QR code for those local levels, because I know one of the challenges that you're dealing with is print, and that's something that becomes immediately obsolete as soon as you print something and then you send it out to every one of these stores. So being able to do when you're talking about like a dynamic ability with a QR code, that's something that a company like Accutics or a Claravine or something like that can really help with, in being able to then add elements into your campaign tracking code after the fact. So that's something to really think about, that you might be able to include within that campaign, that your URL parameter string, to help with those considerations.
That's very solid. And then also seeing some very good suggestions in chat, just reading those out because they won't be in the recording. So like was this, for example, saying, what about having customers like scan or type something off, for example, from the bill and then enter that directly in the app. Like, could also be a QR code that they can scan directly in the app, which I've also seen in my personal life. So there's definitely companies doing that. Then Judeline, if I pronounce that correct, like probably not, sorry for that, is saying that, of course, location tracking within the app, also maybe from mobile services, could be solid to just attribute whatever happens in the app towards a physical location, which is very true. And then Marcus is also saying that in their app, people can select a favorite store, which then helps them to promote things locally within the app, of course, but also maybe attribute success. So quite a different ways to do it. Very nice.
Without going into too much detail, a further complexity in our business is linking up this Adobe journey data with our broader data warehouse consumer database. So yeah, everything a user does that doesn't necessarily touch the app. So if the user uses a physical card to kind of an old school card to transact, that's still part of our loyalty scheme, but it wouldn't be part of this solution. So lots of things for us to consider. I just wanted to share kind of a real life challenge really that we're facing into and trying to figure a solution to.
Very good, very helpful certainly to quite a lot of people, because I can just see from the discussions in chat that you're not alone with that challenge. Like, obviously bringing in like physical, offline, and also legacy systems always add some fun complexity to the mix. All right, so thank you a lot, Dan. I think we're good to move on to the next topic then, right? Because as announced in the beginning, we have a jam-packed session today. And next on the agenda is actually a sneak preview towards a very interesting session that is going to happen tomorrow. So who actually of you is going to present that part? We didn't talk that through before.
Well, we could do it together, Jeff, or if you want, I can take it. I guess I'm taking it. He's not even coming off mute. Okay, so
tag Jill. Jen, sorry. Sorry.
No worries. So as Frederick just introduced, so the North American East user group is actually hosting this session that we've been trying to get off the ground for quite some time. So this is a little shameless promotion due to timing. So Jeff and I will be hosting this event, and we have a special guest, Jeff Chasen, who is a senior evangelist at Adobe, who will be actually doing a walkthrough, doing side-by-side, hopefully, unless we have technical challenges, of how to test your mobile implementation using the old method of proxy connection like Charles, versus Project Griffon, or as it's now called, AEP Assurance. Thank you. Is it the points coming in? There we go. So just to give you a little preview, like the old way when you were using a proxy connection, you had to connect your device to a proxy. There were often security roadblocks to seeing the data. I'm looking at you, Android. I love you, but your security makes testing pain. So you could see the context variables, but you couldn't actually see the final mapped results. So you had to wait up to an hour to go into Workspace and then spend time checking all the dimensions and events to make sure they were mapped correctly. With the new Project Griffon or AEP Assurance, you don't need that proxy anymore. And because the information is being seen at the server level, it actually gets around those security issues. So you shouldn't run into those same challenges. And in the tool, you can actually see the original context variables, but you can also see post-process data directly in the tool. So you can see it
Lag.
faster. And you're testing in your development environment, you can see the results of that and make sure that it's going to where you need it to go. Yes, Jeff?
Nope. Just a small tech issue. That's okay.
Oh, okay. No worries. All right. And I think that's that's pretty much it. The details are on the next slide for the event. So if you want to leave this up for a few seconds for people to sign in with the QR code, get set up. Now, I do realize that a lot of the people in this call probably are not in our time zone. So if you can't make it, that is entirely, it's absolutely fine. The session will be recorded and posted to the same Adobe Analytics YouTube channel that Frederick pointed out at the very beginning. So the recording will be available to everyone as soon as we have it uploaded. So don't feel like you need to come in the middle of the night. We don't want you to lose sleep over this, but we think that it fits in really nicely with this mobile campaign tracking and actually being able to test your information. And I'm sorry if there's background noise, there's somebody mowing a lawn outside the window. So with that, I am going to go back on mute to save everyone's ears.
Oh, good. Didn't even notice any lawn mowing going on. Thank you so much. Very nice. So definitely make sure to either join the session tomorrow. Like I fear I just have to watch the recording afterwards because of time zones, obviously. But if you can, make it to the live show because those are always the most fun. And talking about fun, yes, if someone can share the link to the YouTube channel in the chat, that would be great. So talking about fun, one fun part, of course, is like whenever we want to track any campaigns, we need to make sure that people use CID parameters or UTM tags or a.link.id parameters or whatever in a correct way. And one thing that I found very, very helpful to do that is to use a dedicated tool. So like if you know me, I'm always trying to share whatever I learn about the field of analytics with the community. So this is actually coming from our company DHL, where we're actually using Accutics in production today very successfully. Otherwise, we wouldn't drag them into this meeting. So I can personally vouch for the like quality of the tool. And also, we're going to have a fun giveaway at the end of Casper's part. So if you want to take over the screen sharing, Casper, then you can actually start with your part.
Thank you, Frederick. Let me see if I can manage to take the screen here.
Yes, you already did.
Already did. Perfect. All right. As Frederick said, we do have a giveaway. I'm going to share the link after the walkthrough here. I'm going to share it in the chat. It's a little quiz, but I take with the level of experience from the crowd here that it should be like a brief for you guys to go through. But we're putting out 3 pairs of AirPods for the lucky winners. We're going to draw them afterwards. You have 24 hours to complete the quiz. And yeah, I just wish you the best of luck with that. I'm going to share it in the chat afterwards. So yeah, Accutics, we are an online platform. We are ensuring data governance, primarily within the campaign tracking sector, but essentially it's all within marketing data. So it could also be name sets within your media platforms. It could be asset naming. It could be, yeah, essentially anything that you're going on that needs a product hierarchy or taxonomy for your marketing naming. Today, I'm going to focus on the UL part. I mean, that's the interesting part. Frederick and Daniel, you shared lots of insights, and you, Jennifer, and Jeff as well on UL links and app links as well. We have our solution for that essentially could be an answer to some of the questions, at least within the chat. And let me see to take you through how that actually goes. Accutics is an online solution. So you may have spreadsheets, you may have other solution in place for creating these links, your normal tracking links. I mean, we all know Adobe, we're using tracking codes, whether they're called CIDs, CMPIDs, SC, CIDs, and so on. Essentially, we just had the tracking parameter embedded within our tracking links from our app, our campaigns that are linking to our website. When you talk about apps, I mean, as you saw from Frederick's slides, much is actually the same. We're still having this unique tracking code embedded within the UL, but the structure is a bit different. And we need to be precise and consistent in applying this for all our links across our marketing efforts in order to track our content streamlining consistently. I mean, that is the overall goal here in terms of data governance. You want to have structured data that we can trust, and we can use to activate all the activities. We can use for optimizations, budget allocations, and so on. If we don't go to that goal, I mean, why would we even track our activities in the first place? So instead of having a spreadsheet, we want to have something scalable, and then here Accutics could be a solution for that. Everything is configured in an intuitive UI. And a very, very big disclaimer, by the way, this UI is going to get a major wall here after the summer. And I know, Frederick, you are excited to hear more about that in terms of the Agile. But we've been working on something very nice on this. So there's coming many updates to this. But the idea is that it should be easily managed in here. So based on your custom fields, inputs, and all that, you have one way and one repository to administrate all this. All users have access to it. So you'll have a very easy form for users to create your tracking links. Obviously, creating one by one will not be sufficient in many cases, so there are other ways to do this: bulk creation, template imports, exports, and so on. But the concepts are exactly the same. So it could be, let's say that I want to send some traffic to our Accutics website. We could do some pre-flight validation. Of course, we want to make sure that the URL actually works in here. We could check Adobe is present and so on. Then we could say, well, in first case, we want to create an app link. So this would be the traditional way. And I guess many of you guys are doing it already through spreadsheets and all the means by that. We have a taxonomy. All this will, of course, be configured to the business. I mean, it all boils down to your business needs and KPIs and requirements for reporting. What do you want to have within Adobe or your data warehouse? In the typical setup, all these fields here breaks down to a classifications within Adobe, which, by the way, is handled automatically by Accutics, of course, using our Adobe integration. So in this case here, let's say we want to create a Facebook ad, for instance. We can do a social paid. Then we only have social sources to choose from, obviously, because we're linking these fields together and making it easy for the users. Let's target again the US market in here. It's prospecting, brand awareness, all predefined so far. Campaign name, well, I'm going to go with webinar here, and actually I already did a campaign for that, so of course suggesting previously used values for this in order to group as much content together as possible. Do some segments in here. A launch date, we're going to do that today, and perhaps an audience. Again, this is just a demo setup. Create the campaign URLs. In a very basic example here, we have a web URL, we have the destination URL, and we have the appended tracking code, which will be picked up by Adobe, and of course will be classified to all the fields that we had down here, which I filled out before. So in this way here, we ensure that we have the friendly values, or perhaps the abbreviated values, available for individual classifications and breakdowns within Adobe Analytics. Click the link, it's copied, and it's available. You can also create QR codes for it. This works for normal app web links as well. You can create short URLs for it if you would like to do that. You can not even have to fill in the blanks, so just auto-generated. And in terms of the QR code that you mentioned, Jeff, and I think there's a link in the chat to it as well, actually. This QR code here is now dynamic, because if you push this out in your printed content, any materials in your shops, for instance, when users scan these QR codes, they're going to the short URL here and land on the actual Accutics one, the destination with the Adobe tracking placed on it. If you at some point want to change something, let's say that now let me just copy paste this one here. Obviously, it will likely be branded if you want to reuse it. But let's say that it was not for Facebook, it was actually from Twitter now, or a LinkedIn post or something like that. Or it was not a brand awareness anymore, it's for lead signups. You could create a lead signup campaign, create this one in here, create a short URL, use the same suffix of the URL, create it, override it, and would actually override that short URL now pointing to the new tracking code that you're using. So instead of you having to go out and change the QR code in itself, it will simply just update the short URL behind it. It's always a bit nerve-wracking doing this live here, but what happens here behind this is actually it's flushing all the CloudFront services and making sure that the URL is now updated and correct. If we wanted to do an app link, for instance, or a web plus app link, that was also in the chat. Let me take the easy one first. The destination type could now be an app screen name, So this is where you could actually have a predefined list of existing screen names in the app. So this is something that we need to be enabled for deep links. And correct me if I'm wrong, Frederick and Jeff and the rest of you, it's called universal links, right? When we're talking about iOS for deep links.
So one form of them is called that, yes. There's so many
times,
different ways.
There's so many terms for that. Yeah, so when you have these screen names available and handling deep links in the app, this could be a solution. So exactly the same, we're filling out a very similar campaign taxonomy, but we're only creating a deep link. So this could, for instance, be for a push notification or something where you know that you're only pushing out to a user that has the app available. So in this case here, of course, we have the web link. Well, this could actually be disabled as we only want the app link, but we actually have a very structured app link down here. So we have the app name, which would have been configured when we did the initial setup. We have the screen name, so the deep link name within the app. And then we have what you also go through, Frederick. We have the deep link ID. There'll be a deep link ID placed in here, matching you, of course. And then we have the launch campaign, the tracking codes, or the context variable with the actual campaign tracking parameter, as we know from the web as well. So in this case, you actually have streamlined and very consistent process for creating your deep links within your app. And the process from when the tracking code is tracked to the reporting within Adobe will be much the same, because we can still utilize classifications. We can still use the same reports for that, but it's all structured and using the same base. If we want to go all the way, so there was a question in the chat for that. So Web Plus app link. So what actually happens if the user doesn't have the app? I'm pushing this link here out in an email, for instance. I mean, we have no idea whether it's my uncle that opens the email, whether he has the app and so on, right? It could be anyone. So there's many cases, like a tree of that's decision tree essentially. So if the user opens the app on their desktop, well, they should go to the web link. If they open it on an iOS device, well, there's an additional check. Do they have the app? If not, well, they should go to the App Store. But if they have that, they should deep link into the app with the actual tracking code on them. Same thing for Android. So a setup for this could be this. So again, we have the same taxonomy in place here. Create the campaign URLs, and then we have an app tracking URL down here instead. So this tracking URL consists of a few different elements. If I just pull it up here, so we actually have 3 parameters in it, and we have a redirect service. So this is the service and the website that you also mentioned, Frederick. So this will be the first, can say, the entry for the user when they click the link. And this is where we're going to determine, there's some logic going on this server here that determines, I mean, this decision tree essentially, where should we redirect the user to? We have a web link. So if the logic determines that this is a desktop browser, not a mobile phone, well, we're going to redirect the user to the normal tracking URL with the destination also, essentially this one that we have up here with the Adobe tracking code applied to it. If it's an iOS device, we actually have a deep link to this iOS device. But the next step was this, and this is actually handled by the redirect service. The next step will be determine, is the app installed? If it is installed, well, we're going to see this link here. So this will be the one that's going to be followed. Take the user to the home screen with the tracking code appended as you saw before from the deep link. If it's not installed, well, the redirect service actually has an entry for the app ID in the App Store and can redirect the user to that, including the parameters as well. So that's something with iOS we need to be cautious about for installed tracking. I mean, this is probably where you want to go looking at adjust or branch or apps flyers or stuff like that can link the install back to the actual first open. There's a lot of magic going on behind the hood there for iOS. But when you're talking about Android, we do have the refer available. So if the Android app is not installed, well, the redirect service will determine that and create that well-structured link to the App Store with the refer and the tracking IDs available as well, such that when the user installs the app, opens it for the first time, we have tracking as in all the other cases. Of course, this can also be set up so you can create, I mean, we can enable short URLs for it, we can enable QR codes for it, and so on for the same thing. So essentially, this really gives you a uniform way to create these links here in a structured way. And then there's, of course, many other benefits for bulk creation and so on in this one in here. Yes, I think I went all with this. I won't go into too much of the technicalities. I mean, except that, of course, you will always have a full repository of everything in here, all your campaign that you have been created. You can administrate all your campaigns. A cool thing about this is For instance, if we figure out, hey, it was actually not a lead sign up, it was a purchase objective campaign, change it, update it, and then this tracking code will of course automatically be reclassified within Adobe as well. So historical traffic and future traffic will be allocated to the purchase objective as we just changed it to. So there's many benefits in using systems like Accutics to manage these tracking codes, both in terms of automated classifications, structured creation for different output schemes, web links, app links, deep links, but also a full repository and a user management and control system so you know everybody working off the same taxonomy. I will just share the link to our little quiz here, and as you can see, we now have 23 hours to complete it in a little few minutes as well. It's not that long. There's a few information here, a few different quizzes, a few questions, but I think everybody should be able to manage that. I'll post it here after I share my screen. But yeah, that was it from Accutics. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and we're happy to take you through a demo and like a concept how it could work for you guys. I'll stop my screen sharing here and share the link.
Thank you so much, Casper. And yes, sharing my screen now, hopefully. So that's actually everything we have for the session today. So like what I see from the participant numbers actually is like usually when like the sponsored segment starts and like the demo of the tool starts, there's like that huge drop off in viewership. I cannot see that in this session at all. So I hope that we at least hit the nerve in terms of showing the right tool to you, because as we've seen in the end, like building those like tracking links and those like dynamic links that redirect people to different places in Excel. Like I've been through that for multiple platforms, including Apple iOS, Google, and also how is it called, Amazon Fire TV Store and all that stuff. It wasn't fun. Like doing that in Excel is not fun. Managing that is not fun across multiple teams. So yes, like I wish personally I would have discovered Accutics sooner. But yeah, I just had that pleasure at DHL. We're using it, and I can just wholeheartedly recommend that to everyone because it will make your life so much easier. And also like create some real fandom across your stakeholders, because if they are doing that by hand right now, they don't do that because they want to, but because you make them. So giving them something better, they will also be a fan of that. So that's everything we have for today. So thank you all so much for joining. It was a lot of fun. I hope you found it interesting. As always, let us know afterwards if you want to connect, reach out on all the social medias, subscribe to our YouTube channels, join our chapter, do the social media things that you do. And yeah, hopefully see you in the next meeting. It was a pleasure talking to you all, some very nice discussions, and enjoy the rest of your day.